Hey, welcome to Dolly Talk. This is Dolly. I was only 1 minute late, Brad. God. Yes. You were first. Uh, so, what is going on? We are covering our favorite boy, Craig Lewis, and we've got one defense witness and then the closing arguments. So, hopefully, we should be done with that today. And go ahead and start this. Come on, Craig. Get up. Jury's coming in. Come on, lawyer. That is Babu. How are you, half Irish?
All right. Thank you all. Did you all follow the instructions, not discussing it with anybody, etc.? Yes, great. Thank you so much. Ms. Bright Matthews, I'm happy to hear from you.
The defense calls Dr. Gunther Rinkin.
Gunther. Defense calls the gun. Hey,
You're
Justin.
gonna have to put your hand, you can put your stuff down. Raise your right hand, left hand on the Bible. Do you affirm the testimony about to give the court shall be the truth, so help you God?
I do.
You can seat in the witness stand.
Thank you.
State your name again for the record, spell your last name.
She's very friendly.
My name is Gunther Renken. Last name is Renken, R-E-N-C-K-E-N.
Dr. Rinkin, can you give us your brief professional training, education, and certifications?
Yes, ma'am. I went to the Medical College of Georgia in Augusta.
Boy, you just know the Americans would have been swooping this guy up after World War II.
Graduated in 2000. I did a family medicine residency there for 3 years and then was board certified in family medicine. And I've been recertified in board medicine twice and practiced medicine here in Walterboro since then.
And what is your certification in? Family medicine?
Family medicine, yes, ma'am.
And where do you practice medicine?
At Walterboro Family Practice here
And
in
how long have
Walterboro.
you been practicing there?
21 years.
And have you ever been qualified to give your opinion as an expert specializing in family medicine?
I'm not a professional expert witness, but I have given testimony here in this court several times as a family medicine practitioner. Yes, ma'am.
You've been subpoenaed here today because you provided medical care and treatment to Terry Lee Lewis. Have you had an opportunity to pull her file from Walterboro Family Practice and review it?
Yes, ma'am.
And was she your patient?
She was, yes.
How long has Terry Lewis been treating with you at
was.
Walterboro Family Practice?
My first appointment with her was in 2010.
And since then, have you continuously...
And yeah, Brad, that's a very good point. He embraced his hairline. Okay, maybe a little hair on the side, but you still shave it. You don't want to go full bald. Like, he's German, so I get that he doesn't want to become a skinhead. So he's going to leave a little hair on the side so he doesn't, become more of a stereotype. But he just, nothing wrong with a bald head. It is what it is.
been her family medicine doctor?
Yes, I have. She had seen one or two of our other providers when I was out, but yes, for the most part, that's me.
When was Terry Lewis's last appointment in your office?
May I
Yes,
look?
please.
November the 9th, 2018.
And since then, have you seen Terry at all since then?
No, I have not.
What did you list as her medical history at that last appointment?
She had
Okay.
diabetes, hypothyroidism, bipolar disorder, depression and anxiety. Oh, I apologize.
Jesus, there's more?
Headaches and constipation.
Wow.
What was,
Boy. I might set myself on fire if I had those symptoms. Hey, Barbara, how are you? Okay, so she was constipated. Well, I'd be depressed too if I was constipated. Um, Boy, that she had the bowel schedule of Murdaugh. Because you know that guy was just stopped up as well with all those pills.
hyperthyroidism? What is that?
Low thyroid.
What does that mean? What does that do to the body?
It makes the body more sluggish. Folks can have weight gain, dry skin at times, and they can be mentally a little bit slower.
Did she have-
if not treated. Yeah.
And you were treating it?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Did she have, you said she had depression. Was she ever diagnosed with any type of depression?
She had bipolar depression.
Had she had it during the entire time you treated her?
Yes, ma'am. And she saw a psychiatrist for that.
And as to her diabetes, was she insulin dependent?
Yes, she had been on insulin, yes.
Okay. And how long has Ms. Terry suffered with these medical problems?
She came to me with those medical problems. I'd have to go back to her old records, but when I first saw her in 2010, she had had those medical problems.
In 2014,
Wait, she'd been constipated for 10 years? Yikes.
did Terry Lewis have lithium poisoning or lithium toxicity?
Lithium toxicity. I know it's semantics. Poisoning would be
Yeah, like
imply
it's-
that someone had tried to kill her with
It's
lithium.
like it's intentional.
But she had high levels of lithium in her system. Yes, ma'am.
And what was that causing? How was her body responding as a result of that?
From the records that I saw when she was admitted, she was confused and had balance problems and difficulty maintaining her balance and walking.
Okay. She had problems maintaining her balance?
Yes, ma'am.
And what were her complaints after getting out of the hospital for the lithium toxicity?
May I review the
Yes.
records? Yeah. She had some low back and neck pain since falling after she had had the problem.
And she'd been in the hospital prior to that for how long?
2 weeks.
Okay. And the lithium, was she taking a form of lithium for her medical condition?
Yes, ma'am. Lithium is a mood stabilizer, and she was taking that for her bipolar.
I got it. Did you see Ms. Lewis on February 7th, 2012?
Yes, ma'am.
And what were her complaints at that time?
She was in with a tremor and was having a lot of shaking and having difficulty keeping her balance. She had had trouble eating and drinking because of the shaking and was tired, and she had had difficulty driving.
And this goes all the way back to 2012?
Yes, ma'am.
As a result of, did she describe, or did you describe?
When was
as a
that date?
Because of difficulty.
2012. On February 7th, 2012.
Oh, it's 2012. Okay, sorry.
Yes, ma'am.
And what were her complaints at that time?
She was in with a tremor and was having a lot of shaking and having difficulty keeping her balance. She had had trouble eating and drinking because of the shaking and was tired, and she had had difficulty driving.
And this goes all the way back to 2012?
Yes, ma'am.
As a result of, did she describe, or did you describe in her records how she trembled and what part of her body had tremors? I can withdraw.
What part of her body?
How did she describe her medical condition?
She described it as she had had difficulty with shaking a lot and difficulty keeping her balance.
Did she say what part of the body was shaking?
Objection, leading.
No.
No, ma'am.
Your Honor,
Oh, I'm sorry.
this is an exception for medical a statement for medical purposes.
It's in the report. You may proceed, sir.
Go ahead, Nick.
When I examined, she did not say to me which body part. When I examined her, I did make note that her hands were shaking.
Okay. Did you follow up and send her for a neurological exam to see if she had Parkinson's?
Yes, ma'am, I did. I sent her to the Movement Disorder Clinic at MUSC.
Okay. And did Miss Lewis also have breast cancer?
Murder.
Yes, she did.
And she had that in 2012?
Yes, ma'am.
And did she, as a result of that, what kind of surgery did she end up having?
She had a double mastectomy. She had both breasts removed.
Did she have any follow-up regarding any chemotherapy or radiation?
She had both. She had radiation therapy, a full course of treatment for that, and then had chemotherapy and was maintained on chemotherapy after that.
There's been some talk about Ohio River fungus. What is that?
That is a fungal disease that affects the lungs.
And is it curable?
It is treatable, yes, ma'am.
Is it?
For most folks, they don't really even know they have it.
Okay.
In patients who do get sick, there are medications that can help treat it, and yes, very few people have long-term effects with it.
And did she have Ohio River Valley fungus? Did she?
I'm not aware of that.
Okay. On January 3rd of 2014, you were forwarded a report from St. Francis regarding treatment received by Ms. Lewis.
Yes,
Do
ma'am.
you see that?
Yes, I have that, yes, ma'am.
And what was Ms. Lewis being seen for at Bon Secours St. Francis?
Her discharge summary states that she was seen with dementia, diabetes, hypertension, the history of breast cancer, high cholesterol, and bipolar disease.
And at that time, they diagnosed her with dementia in 2014? Or maybe that's what she was released for?
Yes, ma'am, that was the diagnosis, discharge diagnosis.
Did you receive medical records from Colleton Medical Center after Ms. Lewis was an inpatient on the 4th floor of the hospital on January 8, 2014? If so, please refer to those records.
I have received those subsequently, yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
What does those records reveal as it relates to any history, social history regarding abuse of this patient?
Her abuse history, as listed by the admitting physician, stated that she had denied being a victim of physical, emotional, sexual abuse at any point in her life.
Did Ms. Lewis's tremors ever resolve or stop?
Not that I was aware of, not
Please
when I
answer.
was treating her.
Excuse me?
Not when I was treating her, no, ma'am.
Please answer any questions Ms. Swanson has, please.
Good afternoon, Dr. Rankin.
Good afternoon.
I believe we've actually been on a case before.
Yes, ma'am.
And I came out to your nice farm.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. Okay, so you treated Terry Lewis when
Does he live on Murdaugh's ranch now?
she was alive.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so you treated Terry Lewis when she was alive.
No, he treated her when she was dead. That is a stupid question.
But not after, obviously, the life-threatening burns that she received, right?
No, ma'am.
Okay.
Not seen her again.
Okay. And she was being treated for her depression, correct?
That is correct.
All right. And the last time that she came to see you, it was just her litany of normal conditions that she had had for a long time, and that was November 9th of 2018, right?
Yes, ma'am. That is correct.
Okay. So any of these, you never diagnosed her with dementia, correct?
No, ma'am, I did not.
Okay, thank you. That's all I have. Thank you, Dr. Rankin.
Thank you, ma'am.
I don't have any redirect.
All right. Any objection to this witness being excused?
No, Your Honor. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Rankin.
Yeah, the testimony was very good for the defense.
Your Honor, the defense rests.
Oh, okay.
Oh, even the judge is
All
smart.
right. We had a brief discussion earlier about it's only 3, so members of the jury, I think what we're going to do is let you go, because most of what we will do for the rest of the day we would not do in your presence anyway, and have you come back tomorrow at, are we still good with 10, or does that work? Does that work for you as well?
It's up to the court. We should finish ours today, and we can start earlier if you want to, or 10 o'clock is fine.
Let's make it 9:30, just in case, okay? Does 9:30 work for y'all in the morning? All right then. Thank you all so much for your attention today. Standard instructions, please, this evening, don't discuss the case with each other, with anyone else. Please don't do any investigation of your own. Please avoid any computer, internet, media accounts, anything like that. And I will see you all at 9:30 tomorrow morning. Thank you so much.
Okay. Anything else?
All right, y'all want to take a 10-minute break, and then maybe we can try to get together on charges? We can
I did
do-
just send an email to Your Honor, the law clerk and the state from the defense proposed jury charges.
Do you have them printed out that we can look at?
We can
We can certainly go print them.
I was
That's
thinking
about
we
it for the day. So we'll start with day 3 closing. Yeah, this judge is very good, in my opinion.
just don't draw on it, I guess.
Judge Dukes presides.
Good morning, y'all. Be seated. Thank you.
Oh, he's always good.
I got all kind of water.
If they did not print it, I can have a clerk print it.
As many as y'all need, and then one. No, that's all right. We'll use Rita's, and nevertheless, we'll just, unless you want to keep it, you
Jury
can have mine. It's all
instructions, we don't
better.
really care about that.
Please just, yeah,
Is-
I'm gonna mark some.
Go ahead.
I've seen the jury charges, and I think I sent a response back. I just want to make sure they're for you to read, and they're not going to go back to the jury.
What do you mean, the response?
The charges,
The charges?
yes.
And we're still kind of off the record talking, but
Yes.
I'm just gonna put it over.
Terry Lewis was a survivor of domestic violence, but not for long. Craig made sure of that. And unfortunately, she's not here to tell her story. We hope that his actions and the truth that Leanne spoke to you resonates, and that it's enough for you to hold this man accountable for such a heinous murder. There is no dispute that Craig Lewis was at Wade Hampton when Terry Lewis was set on fire. He places himself with Terry at the crime scene. The only thing in question is whether this was some terrible accident or if it was an intentional criminal act. I don't want you to get bogged down by all of these peripheral issues that the defense has brought up, these probate court matters, Terry's health issues from 2012 and 2014. She had tremors. She had a balance issue years before. Craig says she lit herself on fire, lighting the same fireplace that she had been lighting for 25 years. None of those issues lend any insight to whether or not Craig set Terry on fire, or whether it was an accident. But you know what does? Craig and his actions, as well as the scene. Craig lends us a bunch of insight. The night before he claims Terry lit herself on fire using the same fireplace that she has forever, he gets into a violent domestic with her. Terry, hysterical, calls her daughter Leanne, 2 o'clock in the morning, to come get her. She's outside with what she could grab. They head on down the road. They have to turn around about half a mile because Terry realizes she doesn't have the keys to the Wade Hampton house. She goes back. She bangs on the door. Craig opens the door, slams it in her face, slams her hand in the door, throws things at her, pushes her down the wheelchair ramp in the back of the trailer. Eventually, he screams at Leanne to take her away before he hurts her. He screams that he has given her everything, but she is cheating on him, and now she gets nothing. Well, how does one ensure that one gets nothing? That sounds like a threat. That sounds like he wants her dead. Leanne takes Terry to the Wade Hampton residence, situates her there with her daughter's phone so she can get in touch if anything happens, if anything's going on. She checks on her the next morning. Everything seems fine. When she's at work, she starts getting hang-ups at about 10 a.m. Is that Terry calling for help? That makes sense. Craig's back. Leanne thinks nothing of it until after she's burned on 38% of her body, after she's at the hospital, and then she relays those concerns to the nurse.
She also said she couldn't operate the iPhone well.
We don't know how long she was burning while Craig cleaned up. And when he realized she was not dying, he finally decided to take her to the hospital. But what he didn't do was call for any help.
That's what going to a hospital is for.
Let's talk for a minute about Leanne. She's an only child She's an only daughter. She's extremely close with her mother. She's a devoted daughter. She was Terry's biggest advocate during her life and during her death. A daughter that would love nothing more than to get her mother back. She got on this stand and told you that Craig was not always bad. Things were not always bad between Craig and Terry. They had a long relationship, but things got bad at the end. The fact that the fact that Leanne does not think that her mother's murderer should benefit financially from the murder of his wife makes sense. It does not make her a dishonest person or a greedy person. In fact, it seems logical, and Leanne simply wants justice for her mother. She has waited 6 long years. This family has suffered. When the defense tried to cross her on her prior statements, it was, how many times did Craig slam her hand in the door? 5? Oh no, I think you said 3. No, was it 4? Okay, that just means she wasn't practicing her testimony. It's not inconsistent with the facts.
Well, she has to make it up on the spot.
She told nurses
Hey,
at
Angela.
the ER when she got to the hospital about the domestic because she was concerned that it may not be an accident and wanted police to look into it. So let's talk about when law enforcement was dispatched to make contact with Craig. What was he doing? He was in the carport, hosing down what appeared to be fire debris, cleaning up.
From a fire. Wow, the audacity of him.
When police told him he was being detained, he goes straight to his SUV, starts up the car, and tries to leave. He failed to respond to commands to get out of the vehicle. Several officers had to pull him out of the car. Craig Lewis, if you haven't noticed, is quite a large man. I believe David Long even said he looked like he had lost some weight. So he's far bigger than any of the officers that took the stand. So it did take several of them to pull him out of the car. It's also kind of an awkward thing to do. Regardless, he was eventually detained. But why was he trying to leave?
To go see
And
his
why did he
dying
not
wife.
call 911? Why is he cleaning up? Why is there a couch missing from the living room that's burned up and thrown in the woods?
Because it's burned up and thrown in the...
Why
it's
was he
burned up.
clean as a whistle at the hospital? No soot, no burn debris on him, nothing. Terry's clothes aren't burned. Where are Terry's burned clothes? Probably in a smoking fire pit at the Kansas City residence. Why can Craig not answer any questions at the scene after
Whoa.
Deputy Mullen gave him Miranda about what happened and how he tried to put the fire out? What do you mean? Because he didn't try. He tried to. After Deputy not answer any questions. Why can Craig not answer any questions at the scene after Deputy Mullen gave him Miranda about what happened and how he tried to put the fire out? What do you mean?
Why couldn't he answer any questions after he was given his Miranda warnings? Wow.
Mean? Because he didn't try and put the fire out. He didn't try to help her. He didn't call for help. The scene tells us a lot, so pay attention to those pictures. We have a wood-burning stove that Craig claims Terry
They should have objected there.
was lighting and it blew back on her. Now, we don't even have any evidence that these doors were open. These doors, as testified
I don't know. Is David still here? The only thing I could think is he continued to respond to their questions, but I don't think he waived his right. That's really sus, though.
To by the crime scene, folks, had what appeared to be some of that fire debris residue on the outside, not on the inside. The doors were closed, okay? You can't light a fire with the doors closed. Also, if you look inside the fireplace and around the fireplace, there's cigarette butts, there are things that are flammable, paper over here, there's a chair over here. Nothing is singed around this fireplace. There is no damage to anything around this fireplace. Those cigarette butts are intact except for the part that was smoked. Those cotton ends are not singed. What is singed is a couch that's halfway across the room in the place that Terry would always sit. She always sat to the left, exactly where the couch is burned.
So she ran across the room after she was on fire.
Located in the woods off Risher Mountain Road. We also have bloody footprints traipsing about the house that come back to Terry from before Craig made her clean up, change clothes, what have you. He obviously wiped her feet off before taking her to the hospital, but DNA doesn't lie. It's Terry's blood in the House of Horrors.
House of Horrors?
The other expert testimony we heard about was regarding ignitable fluids. Maybe they were used, maybe they weren't. You heard that they could be present, they can be burned off during a fire, they can evaporate. However, everyone knows that a couch can go up in flames like this. You don't need an accelerant to light a couch on fire or light someone on fire on the couch. Light the couch on fire to light someone on fire. People fall asleep with burning cigarettes and burn their house down.
You've got more maybes than a Michael Gravely closing.
That's not what's alleged here. Because the story that Craig tells is far different, and it has nothing to do with the couch. Terry's burns are not indicative of some sort of blowback from a fireplace accident. A burst of flames from a fireplace would not set her entire body on fire. Her entire front body is on fire. What makes sense? Craig's sooty jeans found in the house. They're in evidence. He didn't go to the hospital in these. He wasn't in a big hurry. He was going to clean up. What I found interesting was when the defense was accusing Sergeant Varnado of not calling the fire department when he arrived on scene at 3 in the afternoon. We've got Craig with his wife burning to death, not calling the fire department. That's who should have called the fire department.
Well, if it's such a big
when
deal.
Terry was engulfed in flames.
Oh my God.
You all have common sense as jurors, and you get to use that in determining the truth. That is your job here. But for Terry being lit on fire, she would not have been bedridden for months. She would not have suffered for months and months and months before contracting pneumonia to compromised lungs, compromised because she breathed in fire. The ER doctor, Dr. Fisher, told you about the soot and burns that he saw in her mouth.
God, Jesus, stop.
The pathologist, Dr. Beaver, concluded that her death was the result of complications from thermal burns. Injuries that she sustained on January 17th of 2019. I'm not asking you to make large leaps in judgment.
Aren't you?
I'm not asking you to use your imagination. I'm asking you to use your common sense. The circumstances and facts that surround Terry's death point conclusively to Craig being the perpetrator. Things got bad because he was convinced that Terry was cheating on him. Terry got away from Craig that night, but he made sure she wasn't going to get away from him again. He also made sure that she was not going to be able to refute his story, and he stuck around the ER long enough to make sure that she couldn't tell a different one.
Or in the
She was a woman who had been
months
beaten the night before. Her abuser takes her to the hospital and stands watch while she's intubated and goes unconscious. He decided what to tell the hospital and what to tell Leanne. Recall that both the nurse and the ER doctor did not know whether Terry was actually verbal at that stage, and she was intubated within minutes. Dr. Fisher told you that when he reports patient stated X, Y, and Z, it's a whole summary of information that has been relayed in a high-stress situation.
you have no idea.
Their concentration was on treating their patient. Remember that this is a court of record. If there's something I say that doesn't make sense, that is not how you recall the testimony, or something the defense says that is not how you recall the testimony, you can listen to it again. You can request to hear it. Don't necessarily take our words for what was testified to if that's not what you remember.
Don't worry.
Judge Dukes will charge you on the law. He is the sole judge of the law. I will point out that he will tell you that the state can rely on circumstantial evidence so long as it points conclusively to the defendant. He will also instruct you that you must be convinced beyond a reasonable doubt. And what that means is that you should be firmly convinced of the defendant's guilt to find him guilty. The state need not overcome every single doubt, because that would be impossible, and the doubt must be reasonable. So at this point, Ms. Bright Matthews will get a chance to give you her closing statement, and I will get a chance to briefly respond to any new argument that she brings up. But in the meantime, I really appreciate your attention and time. In this case, it's extremely important to all parties here, in particular,
Sure, Christine.
Leanne and her family. Thank you so much.
No, I didn't think so. Thank you very much.
Ms. Bright Matthews, I understand you need a minute to arrange your exhibits.
I'll be okay with that.
All right, please proceed then.
Please, court.
Everything she just said was bullshit.
Good morning. Thank you for your service. I know a lot of times people don't understand how appreciative I am, the court is, the state, and the defendant is for you giving us your time. It is an important civil duty.
I don't know how appreciative the defendant is unless you say not guilty, but okay.
To serve on a jury. You've been here for 4 days, and on this rainy day, hopefully.
Wait, so her closing argument is an hour. Her closing argument, the prosecutor's, was 15 minutes, and the rebuttal is like 5.
This will be the last day you're here for the week. I want to express my thanks to the state, Ms. Swanson, for trying a good case.
Well, that's very nice of you.
She can only try the case with the facts and the evidence that's given to her by the Sheriff's Department.
Oh. That is a Southern burn if I've ever heard of one. She tried a really great case, and it's not her fault if the evidence just sucks. That came from the sheriff. She did her best. Bless her Southern heart. She gave it a college try.
She's done a good job trying to try this case. I want to thank the court for giving my client, Craig, his day in court, a fair trial.
Yes, you can, Christine.
My team,
Thank you.
my supporting team, I want to thank Brian Murdaugh. This is his first, and he's sitting with me, and I think he's done a fine job. I want to thank Teresa McDonald from my office for helping out with trial. And most importantly,
God, this is a small
I want to thank my client, Craig Lewis, for putting his life in my hands, for trusting me to zealously
that too.
advocate
Great.
for him. And in that regard, I want to say this. If something I personally did that you didn't approve of, don't take it out on my client. Take it out on me. At the beginning of trial, I told you there were some things you would not hear and some evidence you would not see.
So,
I told you that there is a lot going on in this case that will require your independent life experiences, your knowledge of Walterboro, your knowledge of the people here.
oh God.
That's invaluable. I did not tell you the story of Terry Lewis, Craig Lewis, and Leanne because I wanted you to hear that story as it developed from the witness stand. What have you heard? Leanne and Craig knew each other first since high school. They're only months apart in age. He would hang out at their house. Craig dropped out of school and moved into the house with Terry and Leanne. Leanne went to college. Craig and Terry fell in love. They began a relationship. He continued to live with Terry for years until 27.
So Craig moves in with Terry. Terry goes off to college. So it's just Craig. Or not Terry. Terry's the wife. So Craig and Leanne, I guess, move in with Terry, the mom. Leanne goes off to college. So now it's just Craig and Terry, the mom. And those crazy kids and mom can't keep their hands off each other. So next thing you know, Craig's stooping the mom. Yes, I did answer you, Christine. Go ahead. It's fine. Thank you. Wow. This is just bizarre.
When he married the love of his life, who was 23 years older at 49. And Leanne told you that she didn't stay much at the house since then. It may not be pretty. You may not approve. But that's the story.
And all its white trash redneck glory.
Now let's get to why we're here. We're here because Craig is charged with a horrendous crime, murder and arson.
Right? Yes.
Craig represents the antithesis of why I still practice criminal law, because everyone is presumed innocent. They deserve a fair shot at life. They deserve to be treated fairly. They deserve representations that is guaranteed to them under our Constitution. They deserve to not have trash thrown at them and then wanting to turn it into evidence. They deserve not to be kicked. They deserve not to be boxed.
They deserve to be able to date their ex's mother and then marry her. They deserve not to be judged by that.
They deserve not to be lied upon. January 17th, Craig rushes his wife to the hospital with serious burn injuries. This is where your common sense as a Walterboro citizen. Everybody knows that Longleaf is where an Academy Road and all of that area near Colleton Prep is very close to the hospital. The hospital's on Robertson Boulevard. What would you do if your spouse is burning? Would you sit there and wait 5 to 10 minutes for the ambulance that's further away? Or would you jump, clothe your wife, since she's burnt her clothes, clothe her and get her to the hospital as quick as possible? That argument about him cleaning up, that doesn't make any sense. And I'll explain to you that further. They arrived at the hospital, from what Dr. Fisher says, uncontroverted by the state. Dr. Fisher says 12:14 is their arrival time. He doesn't say anything about that it looked to be old burn wounds, but yet they want to make it seem like Craig sat there for a long time. He says chief complaint, smoke inhalation, thermal burn. Then he says occurred just, not late, or appeared to be old. He said occurred just prior to arrival. Doesn't get any plainer than that. Then he says, it says her progression is unchanged, but this is the most important part. Context of onset of her injuries. She's painful. It doesn't radiate into her extremities, which means she doesn't have body injuries. Severe pain. Nothing wrong with her eyes. Patient denies any other symptoms. Now, why are we here when we have this statement? And I want you to take this back and read it. 63-year-old female with history of diabetes mellitus, hypolipidemia, hypertension, thyroid disease, presents to emergency department, complaining of burns onset, once again, to refute what the state has said, just prior to arrival. It doesn't get any simpler than that. Patient states, the patient trying to start a fire in the fireplace with the lighter fluid. Patient states, not husband, patient states the flame shot backwards and caught the patient and her clothes on fire. Patient admits diffuse pain. Patient denies eye pain or vision changes. There are no other complaints at this time. That's real simple. I don't understand why we're here with this statement. Why didn't the sheriff's department read this statement or ask to talk to the doctor? Then there was much ado about what happened after the doctor. At one point, one of the detectives even testified that, oh, he left the hospital quickly. Well, then we refuted that. I had to pull it out of Nurse Bishop But she finally admitted that because I showed her where she is the one that witnessed at 1431 Craig Lewis's signature. Nurse Bishop is the one. So after the sheriff's department, if they wanted to investigate, saw that, this case should have been over. He didn't just leave as if he was hiding something. He stayed there. As a matter of fact, I was able to get it out of Leanne that he called her a couple of times saying, you need to hurry up, get here. Dr. Fisher talked about how he counseled. He read it to you. I counseled with husband and wife. He told you that after he counseled with them, wife agreed for her intubation. It was to protect her airways, and husband was agreeable to the intubation. Dr. Fisher testified that at 12:27, he intubated her, and it went well. He said after that, all he wanted to do was make sure she got to the Augusta Burn Center. That was the plan. And that's what Craig called and told Leanne. Leanne kept talking about Atlanta at that point, but it was an hour or so later when they had to change the plan because they got a call back from the Augusta Burn Center that, guess what? Unfortunately, the Burn Center in Augusta didn't have a bed. So then they changed course and had to fly her to Atlanta. With this written proof of accidental burn, and with Leanne getting there about 3 hours late after this, that's the first time. And after Craig left, we hear anything about this was not an accident. The problem I have with that is that she didn't go to the doctor. She went to the nurse. Now let's talk about how and I made sure Dr. Fisher got into this because the state on opening, and you rely upon your memory, the state on opening said that Terry Lewis, I remember the state getting up and saying, Terry Lewis on the whole front of her body had 3rd-degree burns. Dr. Fisher explains that 3rd degree is the worst type. 1st degree is like a sunburn. 2nd degree is less severe. It wasn't until we got up that we find the consistency to prove accidental. He says she had the worst burns down here. Those with 3rd degree, that's the only place she had 3rd degree. And it wasn't on her foot. No burns on her foot, that wasn't wrapped. And the reason why I'm bending down is because what happens if you're burned on your foot or on your, not on your foot. What happens if you get fire caught right here? You bend over and you're trying to get the object off of you. And then what happens is,
ma'am.
Now this is where common sense comes in. Fire comes up. It doesn't go down.
Damn.
Fire rises. She's bending down, trying to remove the article, and that's when she gets burned up here. That's when the soot moves up. The state would have you think that lighter fluid doesn't cause fire to blow back. But I see commercials on that all the time. I've lit fires myself. It doesn't add up. It makes no sense. I've asked myself 5 years later, why are we still here with the evidence? The only credible, written, unbiased evidence was done by the doctor. One thing I will give Leanne credit for is that she says that when she was in the room with Craig, some 3 hours later, he was sitting in the corner, couldn't talk because he was so distraught. She finally admitted that he was distraught. but the state won't bring that up to you. During the 3 hours, while they're waiting, during the 3 hours, not one nurse, not one PA, not Dr. Fisher detects that there's been anything but a horrific accident.
Oh, hush, Ella.
In fact, when Leanne arrives, she describes, after she talks about my client being distraught, he tells her once again, your mom was messing around with the fire. I think he said playing around with the fire.
Shouldn't have done that.
And it went back on her. As they continue to wait in the room, Leanne concocts her own theory.
Hey, Stace, how are you?
By theory, she described from the witness stand, I was thinking it was a possibility. Well, we can't prove a
And it took, the reason I've been kind of silent, guys, is I've been trying to find that banjo clip for 10 minutes now. But I finally did.
case on possibility. I was thinking it was a possibility of what happened. She then goes and questions the nurse, and the next thing we know, law enforcement gets called.
Oh, God.
Things for Craig Lewis changed drastically. First to the hospital comes Shauna Tozier. She talks to Leanne, looks at Terry Lewis's feet, saw that they were clean and untouched, does not talk to the doctor. Wow. Does not secure the video from the hospital. Wow. Does not even interview the nurse or the PA who called. Wow, wow. Then Sheriff Andy Strickland immediately puts out a beat.
Why, Andy? It's almost like this is a small town down in Mayberry. Who does an investigation?
Be on the lookout for Craig Lewis driving a black SUV. They go straight to his house within minutes. Brian Murdaugh, who went to school with Craig, has known Craig all of their life. Along with David Long, Craig let them in the house. They walk in the house and talk to him. And the next thing I know, they want to know why you didn't call them. Why would you, if your loved one has caught themselves on fire, you're going to protect them and get them to the emergency room. You're not going to sit and call the police department for a fire. After they got their explanation from Craig, he goes to get in his SUV. They told him he could go. He went to get in his SUV. As he's getting in the SUV, he puts in the keys, turns it on, and they swarm on him. And Angela Stallings testified, finally I got it out of her, that she, now Craig is as big as he is. She leans into that SUV and leans over him, grabs the key. You ain't going nowhere. It makes sense. Get him out of the car. Well, why not just say, Craig, you need to get out of the car. We need to talk to you some more. No, get him out of the car. You ain't going anywhere. They swarm the back of the house. Within seconds, 12 deputies are there. When Angela gives the command, when she gives the command, they go to take this 6'6" man down any way they can, but they were trying to slam him next to his truck on the concrete. Craig wouldn't let them. He sidestepped and went down on the grass, and because he took those 2 steps to keep himself from being injured, they kick him and they box him. You know how you can tell he was boxed? This little state finally gave us that shows what happened. They had no information about what happened, and they did that to a person, a citizen of Colleton County. Then, after that happened, remember David Long in his testimony? very evasive. He's the first one in the house. As long as it's Brian Varnado and himself, him and Craig can talk very easily. There's no problem. It wasn't until he missed that first swing that he was and gave Craig that he became invasive. He says during the takedown that he didn't want to show me his fist, but I finally got it out of him that he injured that. Angela Stallings told you Craig received a minor laceration. That is crazy. She still didn't put in her report what that Craig had to be x-rayed at the hospital and checked out for the bruises and the kicks that because of what happened to his back and his ribs. Right is right and wrong is wrong. A lie is a lie no matter what car it travels in. You should tell the whole truth. They had the medical records. You know why? Because when you're in custody at the Colleton County, when you're in police custody, they take you to the emergency room. They get your medical records because the county has to pay for it. Because they kicked on him, because they hit on him, the county had to pay for that service. It doesn't make sense. And she calls it, oh, he just got a Band-Aid. You have to look at the demeanor of all, and your jury charge is going to tell you that. Look at the demeanor of all of their testimony. Not one was consistent. David Long says, I gave him his Miranda. Then I believe Kelly Paget came and said she gave him the Miranda. I don't know who gave him the Miranda. Nobody had a written Miranda form to get it signed out of their car, out of all of those cars. What I find most interesting out of this is Stallings says that she was over dispatch, but yet she did not preserve the 911 recording. Don't you think you would have needed that? They charged this man with murder and arson and didn't listen to the dispatch recording? Oh, come on. And she's the supervisor, she was trained, and she didn't think it was necessary to write a report for you? And 5 years later, we got to get her to think about what she said or create a story? She is the lead investigator. She didn't even go back to the hospital, not even 2 miles away from this house. She didn't go to the hospital and even talk to the nurse, talk to the PA, talk to the doctor. No, she didn't. And let me ask you this. From the witness stand, can you tell who was actually in charge of this investigation? I saw a lot of this. No, he was in charge. Jason Chapman said, no, she was in charge. I don't think they know who was in charge. You know why? Because they know they were dropping the ball. How about this? We wouldn't even be here today. If I am to believe 1/10 of what Leanne says from the stand, she says her mama was lucid, I think was the word she used, that after her mama stayed in the hospital in Atlanta and was transferred in May to the Charleston Hospital for rehab, she said her mama was lucid. Well, let's look at that. If her mama was lucid, and if the sheriff department wanted to get to the truth in this case, shouldn't one of those investigators have gone to Charleston? It ain't that far away.
Objection, Your Honor. May we approach?
Are you kidding me?
Yes. Let's go.
Objection. It's argument. What they did. When her mother was lucid. Oh my God. Ugh. Okay, we got a banjo conference here, guys. Oh, I wish they did this sidebar. Maybe a cousin. Jeez. Chill out, man. I probably should stop that. They done dirty to mama. Foosball is for the devil. Okay, enough of this shit. Oh, I kind of like seeing her pissed. Oh, here we go.
As Angela Stallings and Jason Chapman are sitting there pointing their fingers at who's in charge, Craig Lewis sat in jail from the 17th.
I'm sorry, can you rule on that? Was that sustained?
Are you?
We're talking about
We probably ought to do that outside
Are
of the
you
presence of the
fucking-
jury if we're going to actually do that. Did you want to?
I want to proceed.
Okay, all right.
And I will start again. As Angela Stallings and Jason Chapman sat there pointing fingers at who should be in charge of the investigation, my client, Craig Lewis, sat in jail from January 17th to February 19th. He, if I go by what has been testified to, had already been Mirandized by 2 officers. Both Jason Chapman, after a little bit of prodding, finally admitted that they never even went over and talked to Craig Lewis to get his story. Perhaps the reason why Chapman and Stallings, as witnesses, were so defensive, at least appearing to me, is because they knew they dropped the ball. Let's look at Kelly Pageant and David Long.
Well, I've never heard of a Colleton County murder case, having the ball dropped like that. No, sirree.
Their reports, too, are inconsistent. Does it make sense that both of them would have read Miranda rights? No. Sheriff Fanley Strickland goes to the hospital, talks to Craig, and finds the couch that he instructed someone to take to the dump, that Craig had previously had someone to take to the dump on the side of the road. Does this sound like Craig not cooperating? No. They confiscated Craig's phone. Did they bring you the evidence of what they confiscated? Because if so, then they would have been able to go in the phone, dump it, get the information, and backtrace on who Craig called to move the sofa as he's sitting there with his wife.
And what
We have to think of common
orientation it was
sense.
in.
They could have found out, they would have found the text and everything. But we don't have that. I don't have the burden of proving anything.
Good.
He went from the couch and helping them find the couch to lock up. There has been much ado about this burnt couch. Why is the couch so important? I don't know. Who would keep a burning couch or a couch that has been burnt in their house if they know they're going to be in Atlanta with their wife for fear that it will reignite and burn your whole house down? Doesn't it make sense that he's trying to get ready to head to the burn center in Atlanta? Who carried the burn sofa away? Sheriff's Department had the ability to have that person here. And why they put it where they put it, why they put it, it has nothing to do with this case.
He was going to Atlanta.
They confiscated not only Craig's phone, they confiscated his wife's phone. But yet they didn't put any of that in the evidence. And coincidentally, when you became jurors in this case, that's why I asked you. Any of you look at crime shows? 31 days in lockup. Many officers involved in this case. Crickets.
So she wanted a jury that looks at crime shows. That's interesting. You wouldn't normally, but since the case was so bad, that's interesting. That's an interesting strategy.
Now, you've seen a lot of evidence.
CSI Low Country.
All of this evidence here. Look at this sofa.
CSI Holla.
Look at the sofa. Look at the one they got off the side of the road. Look at the blanket that has the smothering burn on it. They didn't test any of that stuff. They knew they had the burden of proof. This sofa has not even been tested to see if it had lighter fluid on it. Who would burn their wife sitting on a sofa and throw it on their legs first? That's the only part of the sofa that's messed up. I heard some talk of the door to the fireplace being closed. I didn't enter this in the evidence. They did. They collected the sofa inserts off the side of the road in the blanket. You remember, Officer Chapman, I had to get him to admit, oh, there's white cotton that looked, and if you look a little bit closer, you'll see the singe marks. Did they test that? Now, the other much ado in this case, I will admit, I was like, where would blood come from? Then it made sense. Dr. Fisher said, no, you don't find a lot of blood with burn because it cauterizes. So, but they test the bloody footprints, doesn't have anybody here to tell us how old those bloody footprints were. Of course it's her blood. She lives in the house. She has a lot of medical issues. They don't say when they occurred or how they occurred. They just want you to live on probably maybe this is how I think it happened. That's not enough. And you know, they talk about this case being an old case. Yeah. Well, it took me asking Miss Lacey, or Lacey, I'm not sure how to pronounce her name, that did the DNA. They took the swabs of her, Miss Lewis's DNA when she died on November the 3rd at MUSC. That's when the pathologist collected it. You know when Miss Lacey said she got the swabs to do the comparison? In 2022. All while Craig is languishing. They didn't worry about it. Somebody dropped that ball too. They didn't realize, I believe, that Dr. Fisher would talk about the cauterization of blood. They didn't realize that Shanatoja went to the hospital and saw a clean, untouched foot. They don't realize that you know that the burden is on them to bring a nurse here or bring a doctor here that says, I cleaned off her foot. I cleaned blood off of it. They could have gotten the nurse's notes. They didn't realize you understand when they clean your foot or they clean blood off you, it's usually some type of iodine that will leave a color. She said clean, untouched foot. The wood burning stove. Let me show you what I put into evidence. This is really crazy. Here is the picture. That's defense exhibit number 5. The door is clearly open. There is clearly a lighter fluid can on top of the stove. And yet, no one testified from that witness stand. And it's sort of embarrassing to me.
Bless her heart.
Do you mean to tell me Colleton County, no one out of those 12 people that came to the scene doing investigations, nobody knows how to lift fingerprints? They didn't even bother to lift fingerprints off of this lighter fluid can. I could bet you if Craig's fingerprints were on there, you would have been presented with that evidence. That's just unbelievable. And yet they come here and try to show you pictures of a closed door.
Yes.
With some debris. As old as this house looks and as old as this stove looks, they can't tell you when that debris was put there or what happened. They didn't even bother make an attempt to bring you a cause and origin expert. The burden is on the state. They didn't even bother to get someone from the fire department to come and say, hey, this is my specialty. This is what I do. I determine fires. This looks like it's been set this long ago. No. They just want to call Craig a murderer. Then they said, oh, we felt the log. What? You felt the log? And you couldn't get in the house until 5:30, pursuant to the search warrant. If all the fire blew out, there's none going to be in the fire. There's much ado about residue from the house. They didn't even test it, so I don't know why they testified to it. I saw even one that looked like there was dog urine. They talked about that on the floor. I don't understand. You have here some bags. You got a bag which appears to be jeans. They just threw it in to evidence. Didn't test that either. Another bag which appears to be jeans. And she says the reason why she put this in is there was debris on the bottom of the pants leg. So which one was he wearing? They hadn't tested that either. But yet they talk about burn pits he had at his other house. Perhaps it came from that. And wouldn't you expect stuff at somebody's house? They want you to figure out which one is real evidence, because we know he wasn't wearing 2 jeans. We don't even know what he was wearing. Why are we here? The only written evidence we have that an accident happened came from Terry Lewis's own statement to medical experts. This is an accidental burn. This is not an arson. This is not a murder. We're here only because of speculation and possibility. Leanne is the real reason why we're here. No one has shown you how Terry was burned or when Terry was burned. No one has shown when Craig got to the house. Just that he got there in time to save his wife. In order to get to why Leanne made these allegations and why after 5 years Craig is still facing arson and murder charges, I had to go where they say you have to go sometime. I had to follow the money. Follow the money, sometimes you'll find people's motives. The check. I know we live in a digital age, and I know most people don't get their checks. But we have a check here that is Exhibit 6.
I would be shocked if Closin County gets stops using checks anytime soon.
Says January 15th is the date of the check. It's written to Leanne Kellum, $1,200 with a scribbly signature of Leanne's mother, Terry Lewis, signing it. The same mother who Dr. Rinkin said had tremors. In November, she had tremors. I submit to you to think about this. This check is on the 15th. Leanne says she was there to their house on Kansas City on the 16th. Everything's copacetic.
Copacetic.
Because she's needing money and wanting $25,000 and wanting him to put the house in her name, in his name. Why then, with that little story she told about why she wrote this check the day before and that her mama was planning on leaving Craig, why would they do this on Tuesday? She go to the house, this check would be on Tuesday, January the 15th. She goes to the house on Wednesday. She's texting back and forth, and she's trying to say her mother did this on Tuesday knowing that she was leaving for Leanne to get her some money so that she could help her mama get out of the marriage. But yet, this is what's telling. Leanne does not cash this check until January 23rd. That tells me that she predated a check to make it look good, but she didn't realize she would have to testify to being up there and up there at the house the day before. Makes no sense whatsoever. Follow the money. I wouldn't blame the state. I wouldn't blame them not wanting me to get into the fact that Leanne, within days of her mama's burning, accidental burning, froze, attempted to freeze Craig's assets. She knew that Craig had inherited cash and that it was in a safety deposit box. She had it frozen by the court when she did her conservatorship. They didn't want me to get into it. Here's the order. It's for you to read. The order is real clear. While she was conservator over her mama's estate, $4,454.90 in expenditures she couldn't account for, and $1,832 of expenditures went to other people, not Terry Lewis. Even though she says she's got reasons why she did it, now she says her mama wanted her to do those things. Who thinks of doing a GoFundMe 4 days after something horrific like this? Who thinks of that? Here's that. She got the money from that, but because it was in reference to a crime that she was alleging, I wonder why she had to take it down. What's disturbing to me is when asked about the life insurance policy, The life insurance policy was paid for from their joint account, Terry and Craig's joint account. She tells us that her mother was lucid enough to tell her in May of 2019 that, yes, Leanne, you deserve that money. Go and change that $25,000 life insurance policy to yourself. And you saw her expression. That's when she crossed her legs and says, yes, Mom told me to change me, move Craig as beneficiary and put myself as beneficiary. Shortly after us, May, the same May that the life insurance beneficiary was changed, the do not resuscitate was signed by Leanne.
What?
And then she starts talking about how Mom lost the will to live, would not get out of bed, stopped getting out of the bed, developed pneumonia and bed sores. She says big enough where you could put a fist in. Had to be sent back to Augusta nursing home by November 1st. Craig's wife that he took care of. He took care of her through bipolar, dementia, tremors, double mastectomy. He stood by her. Craig's wife, he wasn't able to see her from the time he left Closin Medical. He has never seen his wife again. Never. His life was forever changed. That was a 25-year investment. Perhaps she didn't want Craig to be with her mother, but that's who he chose. She died, never seen her husband. Perhaps she would have been able to thrive if she had him. Because she, from the witness stand, said that her mother got better from the burns. So if her mother got better from the burns, why are we here on murder? Doesn't make any sense. Her mother got better from the burns. She went back to have a neck adjustment. Allegations of the abuse the night before. Let's unpack that bag.
Oh, you're going into it.
What daughter would allow their mother to be treated in the way she described without defending her and, more importantly, calling the police? That is the craziest allegation I've ever heard. Here's the abuse if I listen to what she says. Mom is waiting outside of a dark trailer at 2 o'clock in the morning. I had to elicit from her that Mom was actually sitting. Where are the 3 dogs? She doesn't talk about that. She arrives, takes her away, and turns around to get her keys and wallet. First she said keys and medicine. And then after I asked her about her statement, then she says keys and wallet because she needed to buy cigarettes. But before she said she usually buys her mama her cigarettes. Mom beats on the door and Craig comes to the door, slings the door open, pushes Mom down this long ramp. The ramp he made for her because she was falling a lot. You see how long that ramp is? Mom lands on the dirt, which means he would have had to push her with such violent force that she would have tumbled over or whatever. There is no way that you can even buy her story because that is a long ramp. When I asked, where were you parked when you saw it? Because she says it was dark. Oh, yeah, I guess around here. Okay. I drove around there. Well, here's what you do. You look at what her vantage point is. Then when she realized where the next question was, she said she got out. What daughter would stand there and let somebody slam their mama's hand in the door one time? What daughter would stand there and let somebody grab their mama's face and slam down into a grill? And coincidentally, if you look at the picture, if you got the door open, you can't get to the grill. While Brian finds me State's Exhibit 48, I want you to look at that and tell me Imagine this at 2 o'clock in the morning in her story she gave. First, the other thing she said on direct examination, and I want you to remember her body language. I made note of the fact that at that point, her legs were crossed. Her body language changed. I asked her, how many times was this? How many times was the fall? He pushed her down 3 times and you didn't grab your mama who was apparently having a manic or some type of problem? I'm totally befuddled by it. I want you to look at the grill. Thank you. Is there one with the rim? When I asked Leanne about the falls, she said it was 3. She said he pushed her down. And I said, well, where did she land? Because I wanted to know. He built this ramp for her because of her problems. I wanted to know, where did she fall? On the dirt. Well, look at how long that is. Then he supposedly, and Leanne said she was there. I don't know whether she was on the ramp or there, but I don't have the burden. There's a grill right there. She says that Craig slung open this door. If you sling open the door, oh, come on. Who's gonna stand there and let him? He would have to put her head around the door in order to slam it. Don't let anybody insult your intelligence. This makes no sense. No police report. What daughter is gonna allow their mother, who is frail, who has all of these problems, to be attacked? And just hours before you were there asking for $25,000 and a house to be put in Craig's name. I don't know. What daughter wouldn't take their mom, who's such a frail person, to an emergency room? You know she's got problem with instability. You know she has like 9 different chronic health conditions. She's 63 years old. Her head has just, if I go with you, has been slammed into a grill. What daughter would not take their mama to the emergency room? Come on. Was the money more important than mama? Let's talk about Terry's medical condition. Leanne sat right there and said, oh, the tremors had resolved. Well, Dr. Rinkin said in November, she still had the same medical problems. Falls, tremors, dementia. She had the 2014 incident was where she had lithium toxicity and was in the hospital also with falling. Then he said she has a chronic condition of hypothyroidism. That causes you to be laggy and it causes you to fall sometimes. But most importantly, Dr. Rinkin, who has been treating her since 2010, says that she had never, he said that Terry reported when she had to stay in the hospital on the 4th floor and have the psychological eval, the report that he got, they asked that specific question of any of their patients. And he said the report that he got said Terry had never reported any form of abuse. If the state wanted to give you the truth, wouldn't they have found, before I believe in believing in my client, it helps me fight harder for them. First thing I did was subpoena the sheriff's department and the police department ad infinitum. I want any allegations of abuse. Show me all incident reports coming out of Terry Lewis, Leanne, and Craig. We found reports of other stuff. Nothing regarding any criminal domestic violence, and he's not charged and never been charged with criminal domestic violence, nor has Terry been charged with criminal domestic violence.
Objection, Your Honor, arguing facts that are not within the record.
Yeah, let's come around here for a moment, thanks.
Probably. Oh, that's her husband, by the way. That guy is her husband.
As all of the officers came here to testify, not a one testified that Craig Lewis, prior to January 17th, 2019, had ever had a criminal domestic violence. Same thing for Terry. So why are we to believe Leanne?
She definitely married up. Just real quick. Yeah, see, this was like 6 weeks ago. Kind of looks like Bronca. Don't tell him I ever said that.
Do you believe Dr. Rinkin on her medical condition?
Well, so
Or
did her
Leanne?
mom.
Do you believe what Leanne said about Craig's infidelity? Wouldn't Leanne know best whether that story is true? One thing is certain. Her relationship with Craig and her thirst for money gives her the motive to lie and concoct a crazy story that we've heard and get him arrested with hopes of him going away and her getting the money. Follow the money. In closing, think of this. There is no way this 6'6" man would burn his wife on her legs to kill her. All those medications she was under, there are many, many ways he could have done that. Why would he kill her? I don't know whether you heard it or not, but when they were talking about the clothes that was taken off Miss Terry,
He had better
they had
ways
to
to
cut
kill
her
her.
clothes off her. And Terry was so sick, she was wearing Depends. Why come in here and say this was all third-degree burns when you know, with a little bit of checking, that the worst burns were down bottom? What makes sense? How can he would have had to get on his knee? For 6'6", he would have had to get on the floor to throw something on her or set her on fire. She says, oh, Terry always sat in that chair. They got 3 dogs. Look at the chair. Look at the pictures of the chair. And then she said, I don't go over to the house that much, so how can she testify to that? Where Terry sat. It makes no sense. It makes sense what Terry said. The records don't lie. When she bent over trying to get her clothes off, the fire spread to her face. She probably ran around freaking out. It makes sense that she, having tremors, smoking cigarettes, she's shaking. Some of the lighter fluid got on her pants leg, and then when she lit the fire, it blew back on her. Common sense. And she can't get around that well, so she probably stumbled over to the couch. What does make sense, though, is that Terry Lewis loved Craig, and Craig loved Terry. He loved her so much, she burnt her clothes off. He made sure that she was covered enough and got her into that hospital. Do we have an arson? Do we have a murder? We have only an accident and a miscarriage of justice to my client, Craig Lewis. His wife is gone. And all they seem to care about is getting a pound of flesh.
Oh, she is pissed.
This is no love story, as the defense would have you believe. It simply is not. It is a nightmare. Being burned alive is a complete nightmare.
Yeah.
What would you
it
do if
is.
your spouse is burning? Not change clothes before going to the hospital. Maybe call someone with some medical training so that they can remove the clothing from burning flesh. That's why the hospital cut the clothing off of Terry that she came in with, the non-burned clothing, because they didn't want to further injure her.
He's guilty of not being a
Let's
doctor.
see. Reports don't testify, okay? Doctors and nurses testify. You listened to them testify. Whether or not police talk to those nurses or doctors, they talk to you, so you have that information. Does this look like a stove that flames just came out of? No, it doesn't. And why wasn't this fingerprinted? Why wasn't that fingerprinted? Why wasn't DNA done on this? Because this is in Terry and Craig's home, where their fingerprints would be all over,
Oh,
where their
bullshit.
DNA would be all over, because they lived there.
You would have
DNA
loved
fingerprints
to
would
use
prove
that.
nothing, because you can't tell when DNA was placed there, nor when a fingerprint was placed there.
Wouldn't stop you from using it.
Ms. Bright Matthews wants to argue that Craig was distraught. Well, I think Leanne also described the word panicked when she described what he was like, when his demeanor was like. Panicked, because he knew, oh boy, this does not look good for me. Let me make some arrangements to get that couch out of here, because that doesn't look good. Also, let's talk about the grill. Seems to me, unlike what Ms. Matthews told you, that you can actually open the door and get to the grill. So You make that determination. She talked a lot about how Craig was the victim of a police beating. There is no evidence of that. None of these officers testified that they kicked or punched him. He was failing to follow their commands to get out of the car. He was being detained. He did not want to be detained. He is a huge man. They got him out of the car. They took him to the ER. Dr. Fisher told you that he had a scrape on his face, that he complained about possible internal injuries. They x-rayed him. The x-rays were clear. They sent him on to the jail with a couple Advil. He was fine. He is not the victim in this case.
Yeah, his wife is, that he loved, apparently.
I believe Ms. Bright Matthews mentioned that residue from the house that was on the floor was not tested. It was. It's in these cans. Agent Tang testified to it. Unfortunately, it just didn't tell us very much, because if there was any ignitable fluid, it could have been evaporated, but we talked about that already, and use your common sense. She wants you to follow the money. Well, if you listen to her version, it sounds like Leanne should be on trial for murder. That she was so greedy that all she wanted from her mom was money, money, money.
Well, if she was writing checks, changing dates around, changing life insurance policies to benefit, yeah. Nobody's saying she was there, she didn't know. She certainly took advantage of the situation.
Craig is on trial for murder, okay? Follow the money. Craig screamed at Terry the night before he burned her alive. You are a cheater. You will get nothing. So, let's follow the money. I'm asking you to return a guilty verdict for arson and murder against Craig Lewis. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We're going to take up a brief matter of law outside of your presence, and then I'll bring you back in for the charge. So if you would take them all back, thank you.
Oh God, Brad, she does. Oh, she's going to be on HLN in about 20 years. Steam iron for Clay or Craig. Or a suit fun for Craig.
Cold, hot, cold. See, I'm wearing a coat, so you know.
He makes really weird facial movements. Suffer, prosecutor, suffer. Oh God, her poor caps tonight. She is steaming. Ooh, she is hot under the collar.
Thank you. We had 2 objections during closing in both of those cases. I think the timing of the objection and Ms. Bright Matthews stopping with the comments at that moment may very well have cured it. I'm concerned if I give a curative instruction with regard to those 2 things to the jury, that it'll be more confusing than helpful. Anything from the state on that?
I don't want to draw any more attention to it. I just do want to say that that was completely improper for the defense to ask the jury to consider why police didn't go interview the victim when they actually did, and that was not admissible because it was hearsay, and the defense did not want that in.
Well,
and then they want to argue
let's do
that
this.
that
Wait,
statement
hold
is
on
not
one second. I ruled in your favor on the exclusion of it, and again, I think we stopped it in a timely fashion. So I think that probably handles it, because again, I think you even agree to deal with it further might confuse the jury.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. Ms. Bright Matthews, anything on that subject?
Nothing other than what, in essence, we discussed in sidebar. The issue of lucidity was elicited from the stand by Leanne Kellum, and the issue regarding the interview that she's referring to does not relate to any officers with Colleton County that have jurisdiction here.
Okay, thank you for your comments. And let's see, now that this has been handed back to me. Has there been a change or?
It was just the formatting, it's
Oh,
it
the
was just
formatting.
correction that we.
Okay, so I've been handed what I believe is the jury charge that everyone agrees on. Again, I understand the spoliation motion from earlier, which is on the record, my denying the defendant's request for that. So I think we are probably ready. Anything before we bring the jury back in for the charge?
No, Your Honor.
All right, can you bring them back in, please?
I just said nothing.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. Well, the jury's charged. They go out. They come back. I'll play the verdict, and then I'll be sending y'all over to Hella. She and Steve Gosney are going to be talking about the Koberger case, the DP, and Steve's new book and some other stuff. So that'll be really great. I'll redirect you over there. Yeah, the judge really is never looked miserable. He's just had a good job. Jury was out for like 4 hours. They came back the same day, maybe even 2. Jury charge, OJP. Jury deliberations begin 2:44. Yeah, less than 2 hours they come back. So I'll redirect y'all over after this. Hold on. Excuse me, sorry.
And I've notified my
Y'all be
Rise for Honorable Judge Dukes, preside.
Y'all be seated. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Half Irish.
Let's see. We need all our counsel back, I guess.
We are litigating defense counsel. We usually Kate went to see if they're in the conference room. And I've notified my victim advocate. We need the victims back up here too. She in there?
Aw, there's our boy. Sir, you're probably sensitive about flames, but do you own a iron? Really? Throw it into the dryer to freshen up. Oh, look at that boyish grin. Oh, God. His hair is extra toughable now. Oh, he's feeling good.
Bring in the jury if you would, please.
Bring the jury. Seriously, Justin. I know it seems to be going good for you, buddy, but ooh. Hey, factual line. How you doing? Just in time for the verdict. Jeez, he was all frowns and glass half full the first day. It's really perked up. I know. He was a ball of nerves the first day. I'd almost prefer prison.
Thank you. Madam Foreperson, do you have a verdict?
Yes, we do.
Could you please hand the verdict form to the bearer? Thank you very much, sir. Thank you. Madam Clerk, can you publish the verdict? Thank you.
In the case, State of South Carolina versus Craig Anthony Lewis, indictment numbers 2019 GS 15 00138, charges arson in the first degree. Indictment 2019 GS 15 00129, the charge is murder. As to the charge of arson first degree, we, the jury, find the defendant, Craig Anthony Lewis, not guilty. As to the charge of murder, we, the jury, find the defendant, Craig Anthony Lewis, not guilty. And this was signed by the foreperson on today's date, November 7, 2020.
Thank you. Would either party like the jury to be polled?
No, Your Honor.
No, Your Honor.
All right. Thank you. Members of the jury, thank you very much for your service. Our entire judicial system could not function without people like you who are willing to give up your free time, your time from work and family to come in and make these difficult decisions. I thank you for your attention. I thank you for your hard work. I know it was a difficult decision for all of you to sort through all of that information, all that you heard, all that you looked at, and come up with a verdict. And I appreciate it. If any of you want to discuss any of this with me, you're welcome to give me a call at some point. Can be found in the Beaufort Clerk of Court, through the Beaufort Clerk of Court. You are welcome now to go discuss this case with anyone that you would like. You're not required to, however. If anyone begins to bother you or harass you or anything about your verdict, please contact me through the Closin County Clerk of Court's office immediately, and we'll have it taken care of. Does anyone have any questions? All right then, I would thank you all for your verdict. Any objection to releasing this jury?
No, Your Honor.
None from the defense.
Thank you all very much.
Oh. Oh, you should probably thank him. Wow, only the blonde in the back stands up. Good lord. You're supposed to stand up, guys. Come on.
Anything else from the parties?
Damn
Yes,
straight.
Your Honor.
Yes, ma'am.
Defense would move to have the arrest warrants and all issues in reference to these indictments against this defendant expunged by the court.
Any objection from the state?
No, I believe there's a process for doing that.
No.
But, okay.
If a case is tried, then the defendant has an opportunity to have it done. If we wait till a process, there's a cost.
Granted, I'll be happy if you'll
Tough
give the forms to me to
prosecutor.
take care of it.
Second, Your Honor, the defendant has been on ankle monitoring under a bond since February 19, 2019. Defendant moves to have that ankle monitoring.
He is released from his bond and the requirements immediately.
Third, Your Honor, there is a number, quite a bit of personal property that was seized pursuant to these warrants and indictments. Defense moves to have an order from this court requiring the Sheriff's Department to return those items to the defendant.
The items that I guess
They can have the sofa.
Right. The trailer, I'm assuming is what you're
Yes,
talking about.
the trailer, even the pants, his, all of his personal property that don't relate to any arson, like the lighter fluid cans. We don't want that, but the rest of his personal property, we believe he's
No, I want my
entitled to.
lighter fluid
Well,
back.
from what I saw, you're probably talking about the trailer, the 2 pairs of blue jeans, and what else? Was there
There
anything?
was a piece of a gun, or some guns, or something along those lines. But that's why I just said personal property, and we can work that out later. He wants his trailer, for sure. He can do without the pants, but he wants his trailer.
Who, Madam Solicitor, would be contacted to?
You can contact Steve Basil with the Sheriff's Office. He's in charge of evidence, and he can wait around and we can give Ms. Matthews the 2 pairs of jeans that were in evidence. We don't need them. So,
Your Honor,
have his foot jeans back.
Fine,
I
take your
appreciate
fucking
that from
jeans.
them. However, in the past, there's been some difficulty retrieving things. It takes, so unless we have an order from the court requiring that they return the trailer.
So Ms. Bright Matthews can submit an order with what she likes, and then she can take that to the Closin County Sheriff's Office.
I'm sorry, Your Honor. I did not mean to interrupt Ms. Swanson. An order from this court can be by Form 4 and direct, just return his personal property, and that's all.
And that's fine. If you'll prepare that order, I'll be happy to. I'll be here doing pleas for a while, so
Thank
happy
you.
to do that. And if y'all run into difficulties next week, I'm easy to find, but I'm sure it'll all work out.
Thank you very
The trailer and the jeans. So, anything else then?
That was a mistake.
All right.
pack up
I thank
your
all
shit.
counsel for conducting a very professional trial. I know it was difficult for everyone involved, and I thank you all for your
Hey,
professionalism.
Ozzy.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Hey, Sheriff. Can y'all get the evidence?
Hitting our boy. Aw. I'm sorry. Yeah. And that's the story of our boy Craig. I think she did. She had tremors and all kinds of issues. It was a pretty appalling case. Looks like a good audience for whatever trial is next. I am looking at another self-defense case, but court TV is being really obnoxious with how they're like releasing it. They're kind of do what they did with a Bond case where they just release like certain parts. So I'm trying to see if they'll release more before I start it. But the self-defense case I'm looking at is really good. So yes, that's it. That is the story of our boy, Craig Louis. And yeah, the most redneck white trash family I've seen in quite a while. Yes, it is. I can get some of it half Irish, but it's really annoying because I have to like sign up for their membership, and I really don't want to do that. I might be able to get on their website. I know, Junior. I know, sweetie. Okay, it was a really good one, and I wasn't following it until I found out the verdict was not guilty. And the odds of that happening nowadays are so rare that I was just like, wow, this has to be bad. So I started checking it out, and oh, all right, I'm going to send y'all over to Hella and join her there. Let's see. Yep, that's all set up. And then we got Hearsay tomorrow as well at 4 p.m. Eastern. So I will see you guys over at Hella. Toodles.